Welcome. Thank you guys for tuning in. This is Frankly Speaking. I am your host, Timon Farley. Round 2.
And I'm finishing up an apple.
That's right. Because he's going to need sustenance for what is to come. For those of you guys who haven't brushed up on episode 1 on incarceration here on Frankly Speaking, Johnny joined me. Johnny's an attorney here in the Charlotte area. We were discussing incarceration, the legal system, kind of how it impacts specifically Black America, but also our country as a whole. And there was a lot of meat left on the bone from last week. So
that's fair.
We talked about a lot of things. How'd you feel about the way we kind of left things last week, coming back?
Well, frankly speaking,
I see what you did there.
I thought it was a good narrative. I thought we delved into at least the surface level stuff to get a good conversation going. Right. And like you said, there's a lot of meat still left on the bone.
Yeah.
And probably organs and like
whole chunks.
Yeah. Tendons, the whole nine.
So, one thing that I wanted to kind of kick off today's episode, focusing still on kind of the justice system, incarceration is a big piece of that, but I missed a really big element.
Oh, yeah. You said you had the bombshell to drop on me. All right.
Wasn't really a bombshell, but it was something that I did want to kind of bring back to the forefront of things when we were talking about, looking at how our culture has been in terms of the racial divide between white people and black people, specifically how it relates to the justice system. And saying, one of my counterpoints was, hey, neither one of us have drank out of a white water fountain. We're not going in the back door of Wendy's. We're not, people aren't being lynched. Does it still happen? Yes, but is it anywhere near the dynamics that it was not even really that long ago? I was using that as being a big indication of how I think America has racially progressed, and that there's a level of inaccuracy to saying that, America is the most racist it's ever been or whatever else during the actual dynamics with, how things are right now. What I missed, and you had a good point, is that society and the legal system are different. And I wanted to kind of bring that up when we're looking at, kind of focusing on police and that dynamic for today's show. But it was a good point that, especially for someone who's in the legal profession, you see what the courtroom is like. I mean, there's still books on the law that say you can't spit on a sidewalk, right? So there might be things that, even though on the outside, on the other side of being a convict or being a law-abiding African American in the United States today, I'm not going to experience stuff that may still be. It's almost like getting teleported back in time once I've been arrested and now I'm caught in the judicial system, right? Because some of those same things that were on the books, for the civil rights movement in that era are still on the books today, that are still the standards that you might be getting judged by when you are, in fact, kind of in that system based on, whatever your transgression, perceived or otherwise, is. So I thought that was a great point.
To jump in on that, I think the most important thing to understand here is that just what the role of the law is in this in any way.
Okay.
You talked about the law, what the law says and then what society does, right?
Sure.
And you kind of have to think of this as almost like a gear shift, in a sense where like you have a smaller wheel connecting to a larger wheel, and the smaller wheel rolls, and it may not, the pace of the smaller wheel may not necessarily automatically reflect in the larger wheel, but its
over time
direction is certainly going to stay consistent.
Okay.
If the smaller wheel is going in one direction, the larger wheel may go at a slower rate, but it will certainly go in that direction. The law doesn't tell people how to think. The law doesn't tell people how to feel. The law doesn't tell people, what, what opinions to have. The law simply tells you what you can do and what you can't do. And in so many ways, when that's happening, that's going to elicit, or that's going to extract from a society an eventual behavioral pattern. Yes, what we're witnessing now is the 1964 legal changes slowly developing on a society that now has been at least limited in what it can and can't do.
Okay.
But it doesn't necessarily mean that the motives have changed or the thoughts have changed. Right. Yes. So a lot of those behaviors may still continue and may still exist because the laws never said what you can't, how to act.
Sure.
Or what, it just says what you can get away with. What this is the stop line. This is the rule. These are the exceptions. What we're talking. Yeah. So
and that's why I feel like I missed that point in a sense of not either flushing it out a little bit more or not really candidly acknowledging it, because it was a great point to say, hey, just because things are much different in terms of how I may interact with whoever I run into in the street, right? Based on, hey, it's not okay. I don't have to tip my hat. I don't have to call. You can't call me boy without us having a problem that I'm
justified in.
Exactly, right?
Yeah,
well, it's just not something that I'm concerned about my life if I react to it.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
So I thought that was a good
The
point.
moral authority certainly has, and this is why this dynamic is so interesting, because and we'll probably get into it today, where there are a few pillars that are failing us, but the overarching dynamic is certainly heading in the direction of pure equality.
Okay.
I think the world as a majority wants a sense of equality. I think it's a powerful minority that stand in the way of that.
Okay.
But I think
in terms of demographics, or like people involved in
well, no, I mean,
in
just
terms of thought.
as far as how the country is, just America, us, we can talk about just this country in particular. This mass incarceration problem, I think it reflects that weak pillar. There's a couple of pillars in the criminal justice system that just aren't strong enough to sort of,
keep pace with the the bigger wheel,
and not necessarily just keeping pace, but eradicate evil where it exists.
Okay.
You know, eradicate hatred, eradicate that vile attitude of racism that, you know, that sort of permeated throughout history. You know, I think the criminal justice system hasn't been able to really capitalize on eradicating that, like we've been able to eradicate things like, you know, sexual predatory, you know, sexual, or, you know, or sex crimes, or we've been able to eradicate things, maybe even like.
When you say eradicate them, you mean like pushing it, the dynamic to the
yes,
promise?
you know, we're talking
like a Me Too movement.
exactly, like a Me Too movement, you know, sort of. You saw not only when you know, the law shine a spotlight on something, but, you know, society is also, you know.
Which is what I wanted to talk about primarily tonight with you, about this dynamic of policing. Because one of the things I'm going through our notes, we still had so much stuff that was still left to be talked about. Excuse me. And one of the things that kind of hit me was the entry point, right? You know, you've seen like the little sign that's over like the entry to hell or something. It's like pity all who enter here, right?
Yeah, yeah.
In any case where you're going into that stuff, you know, anytime I get stopped, right, that's by a police officer. Anytime you're going to be charged with some crime, cops are coming to get you, and and that's your introductory point into the bigger mechanism.
Hopefully they've done an investigation.
Well, you know what I'm saying, right?
Yeah.
Like if you get pulled over by the cops, they search your car, you find you have drugs.
That's
your
the
point.
thing. No.
What's no? The cops are not the first part of that.
There's a block between just cops pull you over and cops search your car.
No, that's not what I'm saying. That's not what I'm saying.
I'm just saying, but we have to always think about it like that. You know, but go ahead.
But my point is that, like, we're looking at things topically from incarceration. Nobody went from sitting here on this set to being incarcerated.
Citizens arrest excluded.
Excluded. Okay. Which is, I mean, how many of those happen, right? So my dynamic was saying, let's look.
You have to remember that movie with Martin now.
Yeah.
Okay.
Martin.
But that was hilarious.
but so when we're talking about that dynamic, I know that that's one area that when we're looking at things, there's a lot there too with how we interact with the police. So, you know, I wanted to get, as we kind of start on this topic, have you had an incident for you? Not you're an attorney, so you're dealing with everybody who's dealt with the police in some way. For you, black man in America, have you had an experience
with the police?
With police?
Oh, plenty. I mean,
care to share
the majority of the majority of experiences I've had with the police came, and the backdrop has been consistent,
which is
some nightclub, whether it was a bar
that you were a hostage at. You didn't even go. No, I'm just messing.
I was tripped and fell, and someone next thing you know, I woke up at a nightclub.
I'm trying to tell you, it's crazy how that happens.
It's crazy. Yeah. No. I was at a nightclub, leaving the nightclub, right?
Okay.
And it's kind of in that scenario that we talked about a little bit last time we touched on it, is cops sort of in that situation. You know, a guy and a girl. In both situations, I was with a girl. A guy and a girl leaving a place, and the cops are sort of ushering you along, right? And it's one of those situations, as a man, your dignity kind of gets a little bit challenged because, you know, I just spent hours, you know, just whisper nothing but sweet nothings into this young lady's ear about how great it, like, you know, how awesome I am.
There's a lot of work that's led up to this point right now.
And then I get out here, next thing you know, it's like, hurry it along, guy. Like, dude, like, that was a terrible time to do that. Right. But they don't see it like that, you know, and they didn't see it like that in both of those situations.
So, and what happened in these situations? When you say when they're rushing you along, like they're hurting you out. Like,
yes, exactly. It's something, and it's one of those situations where, based on the event, it was certainly because it was black people's turn. Right,
okay.
Just like we talked about last time, it was, you know, one situation. It was a heightened police presence, and I think it was either like a homecoming event or something like that for one of the HBCUs, right?
Gotcha.
And you know, it turned into something that it, you know, obviously could have not, but it came from a sense of, you know, this sense of hurry it along. me not wanting to just hurry it along or fall for that because I know that's not fair.
Okay.
I know that's bullshit.
So you felt like you were being. Well, paint us a little bit more of a clear picture. You're leaving the nightclub. You're with a young lady of great stature and great reputation. You guys are headed out to whatever you're going to do after the club, and the cops are. They've been blinking the lights at everybody for 20 minutes to get out of there, or they're just.
Well, it's one of those. It's
one
one of those scenarios where it's very crowded. It's very crowded.
I mean, make it specific to you.
Yeah,
know what I'm saying?
yeah. No. This is. Well, I don't want to give all the details.
I want you to give the details.
Well, Tom, this is going to be on the internet forever. I mean, I think this is going to be expunged.
Well, you don't have to tell who the girl was.
All right, but all I was saying is that it was homecoming, right?
Okay.
So imagine any HBCU homecoming. Downtown is going to be packed. There's going to be a lot of just people just out there, right? Mm-hmm. And so in some cities take it upon themselves to bring in extra police.
And you think that's unwarranted or no?
And I think it's unwarranted. In personal opinion, I think it's unwarranted because there's so many bike weeks and there's so many, NASCAR events that I go to that just don't have such an elevated police presence.
Okay.
Now, I don't mind a just safety precautionary presence, but it's a difference between we've got, elevated statutes with you've seen those things where they got the little police tower, the mobile tower. You set up like 5 of those all down one strip of like road in one city. Okay. That's arrogant to me. That's saying we're picking on this group of people. We need all of these precautions for this group for this week. And next week, when we have a completely different group, we won't take these same precautions.
So
I personally,
I'm with you being personal.
Do not.
Flip side, you think it's the same thing going to a hip hop concert versus going to a country music concert? Parking lot situation. You're leaving a hip hop concert versus you're leaving.
That's not fair because it's like saying
the same thing of comparing NASCAR and HBCU.
No. Comparing hip hop with country, you say R&B and country. But comparing hip hop and rock and roll these days, come on.
That's my whole point. I'm thinking like a whole.
We gotta go with the let's keep the genres consistent because hip hop and country are just 2 completely different genres.
That's the whole point. A NASCAR event / biker week is not the same thing as an HBCU homecoming.
Yes, it is. It's a flood of people. NASCAR's worse. Have you been to NASCAR events?
I don't want to beleaguer the point, but I think there's a significant difference to the atmosphere of both those kind of events.
No, one's black and one's white. That's the thing about this.
And nothing. No,
is actually because the reality of that is that one's going to be people. Yes, there are certain environments. You have to understand that there are certain if it's a strip club is uniquely more dangerous, or a nightclub where girls are going to be out and guys are going to be drinking because. That creates a certain level of, elevated.
And that's exactly what I'm saying. I think the different groups. I'm not saying one's bad. Well, I'm saying what I'm saying. I do think when we're talking about a police presence, if you feel like it's unwarranted, and that's kind of what we're talking about. This whole idea of the police, because your interaction. I understand for protecting the innocent and whatever else. We don't want to give too many details about your actual experience in that. But when you're talking about that dynamic, your interaction with the police, I don't want to assume too much. So let's kind of doubling back to that. What was the outcome of your interaction?
The interactions, I got charged. I got charged with some, disorderly, just some basic little charge, just like intoxicated and disruptive, which is basically designed to just be like a lowest level something to just give someone in a situation that you can't truly prove because you just prove that their existence and their intoxication without any sort of evidence beyond that. It's something to just do at the time. It's one of those statutes that's just on the books to just be on the books. And that's something that I actually had to deal with. Okay. And it's something that became a very, very, very extreme inconvenience to me.
And I've been in some not in that situation.
But the thing about it was the escalation. Now, I had my part because I was talking. I'm talking back, but in so many ways, that's the breakdown in this. As a black dude, you're not supposed to talk back to the police. As a white dude, it's okay.
And as white officers,
of course,
okay.
yes.
I mean, it's not of course. I mean, there's black cops.
I mean, yeah. Okay. But in this situation, it was just yes.
Okay.
And so yes, and then it escalated into something, right? And whereas, so many policing manuals around the world from different countries who sort of get it right, all preach and are so adamant about de-escalation. And here there's such an escalate. There's almost just a give me a reason. Give me something. Give me one little thing. Give me one little thing to jump on, and these police will pounce on it. And in these environments, that's what they were looking for. They were kind of looking to just talk trash to somebody to see who would talk trash back to them, and then they all kind of gang up and kind of start looking to kind of get at you. Like
Right.
the attitude behind that is what I think is the problem.
Okay.
Is that there are certain groups of people that we can be intrusive with, and it's okay.
From the police standpoint.
From the police standpoint.
Okay.
And when you think about the idea of serve and protect, when you think about the idea of what government itself is stands upon, police operations should be at least held to the whole Constitution. Based on the 14th Amendment or something, incorporation clause. You got to talk to a law professor for that. But the Fourth Amendment, the Fifth Amendment, the Sixth, all of these, the First Amendment, the Second Amendment, all of these rules are technically supposed to set the governance here. Right. And there's no way you can tell me that when a black man is interacting with a police officer, he has a right to free speech.
So just for the sake of conversation, have you interacted with a black police officer and felt the same give me a reason dynamic, or do you feel that's purely in your interaction?
All my interactions with black police officers have come after becoming an attorney.
Okay.
All of this, everything I'm talking to you was before.
Okay. So I guess what I'm saying is what I'm asking is, in a confrontation or in a situation where, there was a candidate point when me and my brothers were pulled over in Orlando. We were coming from picking up my other brother from the airport after his flight got canceled. We get pulled over by these guys in the tactical unit stuff. First question they ask is this my car? Which I'm like, do you ask Brad and Chad that? Or in the immediate supposition is that it is not my vehicle?
But see, you didn't say that though.
I didn't say what?
You asked Brad and Chad that.
Of course, well, I don't.
Of course not, right? You wouldn't say that. That's the thing about this is we don't even think about how suppressed and oppressed these interactions really are.
And that's the point where
you technically have a First Amendment right to free speech at any time around any government official, no matter what. They even if they are pulling you over.
Sure.
So you could easily ask that question, but you wouldn't know. There's no way you'd ask it.
But I think there's, in as much as you are right in that, flip side of the coin, because I think we come at things from a lot of different perspectives on this, is that all purely about white cop and me? Or is about the fact that there's plenty of people like you. There's teachers that would say something to you that were black teachers, in high school that you wouldn't say nothing back to because I don't want to deal with Mama Metcalf when I get back. There's all kind of situations where you don't say everything that comes to the front of your mind, right?
Yes, but there's another thing where you wouldn't even think about saying what comes to your mind. That's the thing here. That's the thing that so many of our people are putting these and
that's what I'm agreeing with.
Psychological scenarios where it's don't even think about it. This is how you're supposed to act. This is how you're supposed to think. And that's the goal here should not be to have one group. Like I said last time, the goal should not be to have one group of people who the police serve and protect, and another group of people who have to feel like they have to walk on eggshells.
Okay, so I'm 100% agreeing with you.
That's the main point.
Well, you're right, but I'm just telling you my story.
All right.
Can I live? Can I also be harassed as a brown guy in America too?
You obviously are. But
that's what I'm saying. My point is that however, from a conservative standpoint view that I have on a lot of things, I'm still recognizing the fact that there's some cops out there who are dickbags. You're a jerk. You got picked on in high school. You got shoved in a locker. Now you have a gun. Now you have a badge, and you are waiting for a reason. I got pulled over by a guy who wouldn't take his sunglasses off, and he was visibly shaking. He was so nervous. He pulled me over, telling me that I had pulled out of some neighborhood. I was like, I've been literally driving straight the whole time. And he's like, sir, don't. He couldn't handle the fact that he now is in way too deep. He's probably 4'3". I don't know how he saw over the steering wheel of his police cruiser, but he was going. To your point, he was, bump me with his chest here. He was going to show that he was the cops, he was the law, he was the whatever else. Mm-hmm. So, in just kind of looking at that kind of dynamic, there's a lot going on in our interactions. We're talking about incarceration. We're talking about how we get to that mass incarceration dynamic is we as black guys do deal with the law enforcement situation, to your point, and I'm agreeing with you, with a level of, I can't just reach for my wallet. Mm-hmm. Right? I can't just, when I get pulled over by a cop, for me, at the end of the day, I want to, you seen Training Day?
To me, it's the most.
Have you seen Training Day? You have? Okay.
Yes.
What was Denzel Washington say? Hey, what you want to do? You want to go home?
You want to go to jail?
You want to go home? Right.
It's not. You want to go to jail, or you want to go home?
I'm just leaving it just going home.
Right? At this point,
right?
You want to go home?
I don't want to die.
That's
right?
the thing. That's the real.
So
there's worse than Training Day.
But you're right. But the reality of it is, there's a difference between saying, and your mentality, and I don't mean you as in Johnny, but in the general
individual
sense, right? Is that you can simultaneously recognize that some stuff is going south, and then also say, having the conversation about the fact that we do interact with law enforcement, both as civilians and as citizens in America, and then with an extra caveat of being brown. Excuse me. And that's what I wanted to focus on today, because one of the things I wanted to talk to you about is, like, you've had, and that's why I asked specifically the question of, like, what has been your personal, Jonathan Metcalf, has been your interaction with police? What have you seen in terms of the attitudes that you felt or whatever else? Because I think the other dynamic to be the other side, if you will. My uncle was a career policeman, right? And he's a black guy. And how things are for him policing in a black community, the kind of stuff that he sees, that in an identity politics kind of atmosphere, if we're going to talk about, well, cops are this and blah, 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 I think the outlier is the black cop, is the Hispanic cop, is the not white cop, who still is protecting and serving whatever else. And so when we're talking about some of the things I want to ask about, because, I mean, candidly, we had
I don't think that's true, though.
You don't think what's true?
I really don't think that there's an important distinction to really draw between the black cop and the white cop and the Hispanic cop.
Really?
No.
You feel like you would interact with that? If it had been a black cop hurrying you along, do you think there would have been any? You said.
I think they might have been worse. They might have been worse.
Now, you know what I mean? Because to them. Let's talk about whether they were doing, let's just say for the sake of argument, they were doing the exact same thing the white cops were doing. You as a black man hearing from another black dude, does that cut through some of the no pun intended, white noise?
No, not at all, because the dynamic here is not. The dynamic here in my mind is that this is the relationship between a private individual and a government actor.
But if you're going to hold that position, it's going to rule out then this element of racism playing a big
not
factor.
At all.
Why would it not?
Because that's the whole, like, that's how.
So you then feel like black cops would then be racist against you as a black guy?
Absolutely. That's how big it is. That's really? That's the magnitude of what we're talking about. We're talking about an institution that maybe recruits some black guy, and they maybe have one of the most community sensitive backgrounds that you could possibly have, but based on the training brings out in these people a sense that this group of people are more dangerous. Like it's I don't really think it has anything to do with how your ethnicity going in. I think once you go in and you go through that training, think about it. Timon. Just take a second and just think about it.
I'm thinking real hard right now because you're blowing
think
my mind
about
right
your
now.
Think about your the way the way shooting works. If people who don't know, Timon was one of the best shooters you'll ever see in your life. All right, he had one of the most cleanest, perfect jump shots. He was Steph Curry at Charlotte Christian before Steph Curry. I promise you. Like, Steph Curry will back this up. Like, call Steph seriously, but. Shooters shoot, right? Okay. And these guys, they go to gun ranges day in and day out, all the time, shooting round after round after round after round, practicing the target practice, shooting. They're given these criminal profiles, and they're taught to sort of perceive everybody as a potential threat.
Okay.
All right, and then that's the monster that we unleash out onto the streets with a weapon to go interact with people and pull them over the car, and that's who's shaking in their boots when they pull you over. Somebody that's been shooting all day.
Steve,
shoot.
Steve, I know we don't necessarily have Coca-Cola and everybody sponsoring us right now, but I almost want to take a moment to pause for station identification just so we can take a break so I can let my mind settle back down.
Back down?
Yeah.
What's the problem?
Well, because what I heard my guy saying is that you feel that the interaction between you, because that kills the whole hands up, don't shoot. That kills all this dynamic of we as black men are being targeted by this white police dynamic as opposed to just police period. Because I personally don't think
black police are there.
There's not. That's why I asked.
It's not enough to make the institution non-white.
No, I heard you out. Now you got to hear me out.
Right.
With what you were saying, I was asking you a very specific question. If you were in the exact same exiting the nightclub scenario, you were being quote hurried along. Let's say that if we were to a stenographer was typing out the interaction between you and the white cop. Mm-hmm. If you'd have changed places with that white cop, no verbiage is changed, no tone of voice, no inflection, so we're simply changing the race. When you're telling me as a black guy that you would have not dealt with that situation, you would not have felt the situation differently at all because
not at all.
And that's let me clarify. But that feels completely different because for me that would then kill the whole narrative of us talking about we're being targeted by this white.
Well, but it's still very
in the ether or whatever else.
It can be all of those things though. It can be
the only space that I would agree with you that in that would be that there's the dynamic of white and or elitism within being black.
Within being black,
yeah, because the
situation within being black.
Oh yeah, and because it's there. The white doctor, the black doctor, the black lawyer, the black I made it dynamic. You see, there's a show on Bravo, Married to Medicine.
Okay, you're a rose that grew through concrete. Congratulations, you threw yourself a party. You're ignoring all of the fact that the black lawyer makes up 5% of that profession.
I'm asking
the black doctor makes up 10%.
I'm asking for the simple fact that you interact with.
But no, I'm saying that the elitism. That's not elitism. That's defying the autism.
Yeah, and I would say that being a black law enforcement officer has some of the same element. If we're talking about purely the fact that you feel like...
Do they think they're better than us?
Yeah, okay. Because they've gone through this bang bang, all we do is shoot guns and train and whatever else. Because you said it didn't matter. I'm just quoting what you said. When they go into the program, and that's the monster that we unleash, that means that you feel endowed with some kind of power that is the same thing running rampant through the racist white cop.
It's the same narrative. Just the other day, Bloomberg had a little quote. I hate to just throw this out, but I think it's important. Bloomberg had this quote back in when he was, advocating for stop and frisk, and he was saying how, if you wanted to, get a criminal profile, all you had to do was do a Xerox machine, and the same features of the same person will appear because you can pretty much photocopy, it's going to be the same, young, brown, black, etc., etc. Yeah. Now, that attitude, if you can go into a room you can go into a majority white room with one or two or three, isolated minorities and pitch this concept to that room, and that whole room can walk away with that attitude. Just because and you know this, you've been the token black guy. The presence of a couple of black people in some place does not non-white the institution. In fact, it might even whiten it even more because now they feel like they've got a sense of, hey, we've got our token here now, so we feel.
Which is exactly what I'm saying.
That is true.
That's why the token thing. You still interact with. There's a level of, let's say that.
But that's the whole Ice Cube. I'm sorry to cut you off. I'm sorry to keep cutting you. But that's the whole Ice Cube line. black cop showing out for the white cop, like they're worse. You know what I mean? Because they've been brainwashed into this, not because this institution came in here to teach racial equality, but this institution came in here to teach violent racism, and you just so happen to be here.
Which is exactly the point of me asking the question, because I'm walking you into it candidly, of saying, if you then would say that the black cop in this same kind of situation, that you either view him even as worse than the white situation, and yet you haven't had the same the interactions that you have had that have helped perpetuate the way that you see the power hierarchy, or however it made you feel. Because the thing for me that I felt in those situations was, I felt like we're the same size, or you're even physically less than me, but because you have the backing of your gun badge and the government behind you, whatever else, you get to be puffed up. And just on a pure primal man-to-man whatever level, there's a level of humiliation to that. Right? Mm-hmm. It's the same thing of me saying, like, there's a guy who's younger than you, maybe, 67 years ago, who's white, and just because you're white, you can call me boy. Mm-hmm. The only reason is not because if we just hear this and you locked in a room and only one person's going to get out, that's why you feel so bad as a black man. You subjected to this feeling of being like, even though we are, even if I'm intellectually, physically, attractiveness, whatever, superior, I'm still in a deficit because of that. So what I'm saying is, like, when we talk about the police dynamic, are we now getting those viewpoints? Like when you said, like, you can't have the, if you're the token whatever guy in the room, it's not de-whiting the whole rest of the dynamic. Mm-hmm. When it comes to the police dynamics, you feel like you're getting those kind of viewpoints from your personal experience because you haven't interacted with a black cop the same way that you have with a white one. Mm-hmm. Are you getting that from, because I think a lot of the dynamics that we get about dealing with groups of people, whether they're a race, whether they're a profession, you're getting that from, in part, your personal experience with it, and then also whatever narrative is being pushed your way. Because I think that there's an element of what's being pushed toward you as a black man, or me as a black man in America, related to the issue of police, that has some semblance of corresponding with my own personal experience. But if I was to pare it back, I've had, me and my brothers and my cousin were in South End watching the game, had one of the best conversations. Dude, I mean, he bought nachos for the whole table. I'm not saying just because you bought somebody a drink means you're not, insidious in something else, but white guy whose whole profession was being a cop, right? We've had other interactions that say, okay, there's enough of what's getting pushed at me. You see the Instagram post that says 500 people killed by police in the last year. That makes me feel, just if I'm going to take that information at face value, that I should have a heightened fear or heightened awareness at minimum. To your point, like when I get pulled over, am I really concerned? Because I've never had a gun, well, I have had, but that was in a whole different situation, a gun pointed at me by a police officer in, say, a routine traffic stop, versus what I've seen in countless YouTube, Instagram videos. How much of that is my actual experience dealing with law enforcement, dealing with the police, versus saying, you know what, that cop was he was out of line. He was a jerk in terms of how he was dealing with me. And it would make sense that if I had just said a little bit more, he'd have shot me. Does that make sense? Like, we're talking about how much of our actual experience is now where we're not as in control of our own thought process, because there's a level of humanity that I feel that we want as human beings attributed to us that we don't necessarily always attribute to people just because they feel a certain profession.
I mean,
frankly speaking,
the police themselves, they're individual. There's an individual dynamic here, obviously.
Okay.
What I think we're talking to is the numbers. You know what I mean? What's the general profile of the type of person who ends up becoming a police officer?
Okay.
Yes, you have your anomalies, but the general profile is usually somebody who maybe doesn't finish college, maybe former football player or something like that needs some, young male, chock full of testosterone and needs something to do. And that still is the white, very much white.
And you feel like this is like
that
a
is
statistically
still,
backed up dynamic, or this is just your perception of
no?
the
I think
average
that
police
I think that is. I mean,
I'm saying, where are you pulling that from?
Just mine. I mean, I look around. You know what I mean? Now, maybe you could say college graduate. You could say college, but
Well, I
still
think you
the
gotta
whole
be careful
thing.
with just look around, because just
because
look
that's
around,
the-
black guys are, that's what we're accusing the cops of doing. You just
No,
looking around
no,
and
I'm
making a
saying
judgment.
the point I'm making is, all right. I see police forces differently, maybe because I see a lot of them. So I see who's usually coming into the courtroom,
and that's what I'm asking.
And the dynamic and the breakdown of the who's usually coming into the courtroom as an officer is white male.
Okay.
College experience, I'm not gonna make a brash claim to that, but that has been the stereotypical profile for a while. Now, if you want to say the police force is advancing, I know there are a lot more women joining the forces now, which is a great thing.
Okay.
But historically, that was the profile. Call it what you want. If you want to, if you don't want to go back through, if you want to look at history as the few anomalies and the few anecdotal good-hearted stories, feel free to, but the way the majority of the wave has been that profile, and I'm sure the internet will back me up on this one.
Well, and
I'm
that's
confident.
So that can touch on a
will
great
back
point
me up
here,
on this.
because we're talking, and that's what I mean about narrative, right? That's about, is that something being pushed?
No,
from,
that's been reality.
So
that's been
to
reality.
clarify, so you're saying the bulk of the average
police forces across America have been white males. Like
okay,
that's
but there's a far cry from saying yes. There's 73 I think percent of the police force in America is Caucasian, right? To also attribute getting finished college, former athlete.
well, definitely former athlete. I don't know
Just
about finished
need
college,
something to do.
Definitely need something to do.
That's
And
every cop.
and more importantly, the typical person that goes into the force goes into it with something surrounding the gun itself, whether it's not to get the gun or sort of a sense of power that they feel they'll get from the profession. People have that has been consistent.
Why I can get that in America as a Second Amendment right to bear arms person.
Cops and robbers. The idea that police are sort of these heroes that are perfectly capable of shooting bad guys, and sort of this sort of perceived threat that they were all that's the profile of who goes into this profession.
That's a unnoble.
I would rather.
supposition?
Think about it. Imagine.
I don't like robbers.
Imagine the idea. See how we think about crime right now is what's shown here. Yeah, we were talking about our
Okay.
first. Right now, we're in the Second Amendment era of the gun control,
Thank
so
God.
everybody has so many guns and so many weapons.
Okay, good.
And so you think about a police officer in this situation, and you're thinking about him like, he's somebody that you'd want to arm to deal with this problem.
Okay.
But what I'm really proposing here is that, we can rethink what policing needs to be about and what policing needs to be for in the first place. Because if everyone is required or everyone is allowed to carry around their own weapon, then police themselves carrying around extra weapons to sort of be prepared to deal with the people that are carrying the weapons, that's counterproductive.
What way?
Because obviously the way the Constitution is set up, police aren't designed to regulate us. Police aren't designed to control us under their gun. That's
exactly what they're designed for.
No, that's the whole point of having a right to bear arms and form militias, because you want a populace of people who can protect themselves.
No. It's the Second
And
Amendment.
You want to get into this argument that police need to be heavily armed, and I'm just simply saying I don't think police need to be heavily armed. And especially not in a way to sort of out-arm the populace. The populace, especially when you've already made it clear that the populace should have arms.
Oh, so we have you got a couple big problems with that argument.
All right, hit me.
Number one, if we're talking about this armed populace, are we talking about legally armed or are we talking about criminally armed?
Well,
It's a yes or no. It's just because don't go off on something on that. I'm just saying, for the sake of your argument, we're talking about police being armed to deal with an armed population. Are we talking about specifically the American dynamic? Because there's two different kinds of armed civilian in America. It's not. That's not a my thing. That's like I own handguns.
No.
Let me finish.
Okay, all right.
When I went to own,
I'm just going to say armed, just to answer your question.
Well, but there's a difference.
Legally or illegal.
It's not illegal. It's not a difference. There is a significant difference because if you are in a country, when I played basketball in Italy, right? You can't own a hand. You can't. There's no concealed carry.
Exactly. Most countries don't let people just walk around with guns.
That's the thing. Guess who still has a gun?
Some people still do.
Stay with me. Stay with me.
I know.
Right. So there's going to be an armed element of the population. Period. And that's my whole point. Let me finish. So that's why I'm making the distinction. So if you have,
keep in mind, I'm agreeing with you. But go ahead.
But I'm saying I have passed the background checks to be able to legally own the firearms.
But keep in mind, all these companies are dumping so many weapons in here in the first place. Like, yes, all right, you took the test, but you could call somebody who just went to the gun show and just picked up a whole barrel full of them and get one. Like,
but you can't do that's
the
false
thing.
No, Johnny, that's a fair. You can't go to a gun for the sake of everybody watching the show. You cannot go to a gun show, unbackground checked, anything.
Someone can.
Who?
Someone who is background checked and is licensed can go get guns.
That's
and as many as they want to.
That's like saying someone with a driver's license in America can drive any car that they want to drive.
That's like saying somebody can. That's like saying a kid can go buy as many Skittles as he wants. You're going to sell them again. That's the thing. It's going to get resold. We put so many guns into this country. It would be so naive. It would be so criminally naive for our government or for us to sit here and say that it is okay to have these gun shows where everybody can buy as many weapons and as many ammo as they want to, and then sit around here on some platform or high horse and turn our nose up anytime someone else comes up with an illegal weapon. Are you kidding me? What do you expect?
So look at what the basis of what you're saying in a very small microcosm is going to be, of course, be true. There's going to be someone that abuses any liberty that you have. There's going to be people who legally got their license, drove drunk and killed somebody. And it's not naive of me to say, well, we need to look at our driver's license freaking process because somebody's going to mess up. If you're going to tell me, because the same statistics apply, the amount of guns that are in America, I didn't mean to turn this into a gun discussion, but the amount of guns that are in the American civilian population versus how many times something is going wrong with the legally owned proportion of those things.
First off,
isn't the case.
You're talking about an unlimited thing right now.
What is
guns
unlimited?
Are literally being made as we speak and processed and shipped right now.
Good.
It's happening constantly. It's an ongoing.
Guess what else is being
flooded with them.
Guess what else is being still being processed all the time? Hammers, knives, shovels. It has nothing to do with.
I'm an axe man, for the record.
Well, good for you.
I feel like a good axe is all you need. Like if somebody comes up on me, like you one, like you can only, it's like a shotgun. You only take out one, but like
I'm digging that actually.
Like I'm an axe man.
Yeah,
like a nice solid swipe them up. You're like what?
You have approval from Square Media Network's head honcho. So my thing is like you're going to you're making big projections onto the intent and morality of a lot of people, both police at this point, about gun owners in America.
All of these things are interacting. Where does what stop?
Where does so you're saying that someone can't? Do you?
I think.
No. Let's do this. I own handgun.
Okay.
How likely do you think it is? How much ability, per your own argument, could I walk into a gun show and buy a bunch of guns? A bunch.
You have a concealed carry?
No, I do not have. I have just like the license to own the handgun. I had to go through the background check. I had to sign the mental health waiver, whatever the laws for North Carolina are for me to have the purchase permit for me to be a licensed, registered, legally owning a firearm
So that should
person.
be a concealed carry.
It's not a concealed carry. Even though North Carolina is an open carry state, I still would not carry that gun open carry because I think that's asking for a problem, number one. But if I don't have there's a whole nother process for me to be licensed to carry my gun on me where you can't see it.
Okay.
So you have to go through a background check and the health, have your mental health record checked now as law in North Carolina for me to be able to.
What's the one where you have to do that test, that class?
That is to have a concealed carry.
That's
permit.
the concealed carry. Okay. So you
I
just
don't
have
it.
all right.
So I can
all right.
own the gun.
So no, you can't go into a gun show and get it whatever you want to. But if you had a concealed carry, you could.
Because why? Because I've passed. You still have to pass an even more rigorous background check.
6-hour class? Are you serious? That's the only extra thing we just went through.
You still have to pass the same background check.
No, okay, it's the same thing you have to do, and then the extra thing is the 6-hour class.
Right. And so what is the point of that we're laughing about at this point? What is so
You're saying
incredulous?
that the extra thing, the extra protection, the thing that's supposed to keep us safe is this 6-hour class?
I didn't say it's not
that
safe.
people most of the time just give the people the test that they.
So let's do this. How unsafe do you feel with the fact that let's say for the sake of argument, I had my gun on me right now. How unsafe do you feel right now?
I feel fine.
Okay. Do you think that I'm closer
But that's
to?
me. I grew up in America. I grew up in Charlotte.
No.
Like
you're talking
most
about
people would not be okay with that. I just
Why
happen
would
to
they-
because
why-
I grew up here.
You gotta let me finish. The point is, do you think that the average American law-abiding person is more like me, or I'm just waiting to do something terrible with my gun? That I've legally passed all the background checks to show that I don't have a criminal record. My mental health dynamic is checkered.
We are at the point. We are past the point of no return on this gun argument.
Oh my
Because you have to understand now everyone
We've really
has
turned,
a
we've really
gun.
turned this whole episode.
Yeah, now
into guns.
yes, with so many people having guns, yes, everyone now is incentivized to get one as well. You know, it's one of those things where you just don't want to be the last one that doesn't have one. And it sucks, but that's just the reality. Would you want to be the one not armed in America?
Why? And let's explore why would
Now,
I?
yes, none of us maybe want to proactively use our weapons, but at the same time, it's just because weapons are so pervasive here.
You think that's the only reason that weapons are so pervasive? That's why somebody wants to have one. Just because of the pervasive nature of it.
Well, weapons are so pervasive, and so many examples exist of people who have shown that they are willing to do something stupid. So yes.
So do you think? So you think that the gun situation is indigenous to America right now because we have the situation that we do right now?
The indigenous?
When I say indigenous, I mean specific to America. That's the reason. It's because it's America. It's gun culture.
Yeah, it's certainly.
Gun
well, we
culture.
have to own gun culture because I think America was set up to kind of be like a wild, wild west kind of operation. Yes, it was. I mean,
what are we talking about right now, Johnny? This makes me understand why you see the police the way you do, though.
No. Because think about it. Like
I am thinking about it. I thought very hard about it.
Think about what the Second Amendment stood on. Second Amendment stood on this idea that America would be a place where the government would serve the people, the government would, protect, in a sense, the people, but essentially the people would be the check on the government. And to secure that, the right to bear arms sort of flowed from that. So what we're doing is we're shooting ourselves in the foot here because we're not acknowledging what we're set up to be, and we're trying to sort of regulate it with a police force that is never going to be equipped enough to deal with what we really are.
I don't feel that my interactions and my concerns when I get pulled over as a brown guy by a white cop, I do not feel that my concerns around my interaction with that police officer have anything to do with gun culture in America at all.
Gun culture has everything to do with everything you do. You don't not know what doesn't have anything to do with gun culture.
No. I'm more concerned. You think racism then is tied to gun culture?
In America, everything is tied to gun culture.
No,
Yes,
we're not even
it
talking
is.
about that. How do you tie your concern around? Because you think that then that would make gun culture then would apply to every person in America, regardless. And let me finish. Gun culture, in your way of saying it, that if it's tied to everything, when we're talking about our interaction with law enforcement, then the white guy would have the same issue with the cops that you do as a brown guy, because he's just as likely to be able to carry a gun under Second Amendment protected America as you do. But that's not the freaking case.
No,
The case is that you are black and he is white, and that's why you feel the disparity, because everything from the media narrative to whatever has been, his training or whatever else, to see black guys as being more dangerous. That has not anything to do with gun culture, because if you're going to say gun culture, there's Hispanic people, there's white people, there's Asian people, there's all kind of people who own guns, who are lived in America, and if gun culture then would apply to all of them, if that's impacting my relationship with the cops, then that would apply to everybody. But we're not talking about how everybody deals with this. We're talking about that there's a specific element of disparity between how white police officers deal with black men, especially because there's a huge drop off in even how females deal with law enforcement. That doesn't have anything to do with gun culture. Yes, the Second Amendment is created for you to. I think that the beauty of the Constitution is we're looking at not just protecting Americans, but acknowledging that the right that you have as a human being. I have a effing fucking right to be able to defend.
An effing fucking right.
Because I got animated. I feel like Roy. I feel like Roy Williams right now. I have a right to bear, and I have a weapon. I have a right to defend myself. If you're telling me that it's just gun culture propagated by our whatever else, every security detail for every emissary, for every dignitary from any country in the world is armed. Why? Because there's crazy whatever out there. Period. It has nothing to do with just America being Second Amendment. Nobody needed it. The founding fathers didn't mean for us to have AR-15s because that's military grade. A musket was military grade back then.
No. I think they do want us to have AR-15s. I think they want us to have RPGs. I think
who's the
founding fathers. The thing about the gun control argument and the policing argument is just as simple as this. It's just as simple as it would behoove me, just as it would behoove that white guy to be armed, I have to also take into the second element that police may not necessarily respect my right to be armed like they will inherently respect his, just simply based on his color.
What do you mean by respect? Acknowledge?
The whole racism thing we've been talking about. Based on the color of my skin, the fact that I might be armed makes me more dangerous based on their training.
And that's why
even though it's lawfully armed, they still are that still may be potentially.
So then how do you train
a more dangerous
thing? How do you train a government official, an entity, to deal with a population that could be armed without telling him you must be aware, you must be prepared at that time? I don't have nobody.
You can do that. Just do it racially neutral.
So nobody tells me to be worried about cars unless I'm crossing the street.
Okay, yeah, but does anyone tell you when crossing the street that you should be more concerned about red cars versus blue cars? No, because they both will run your ass over.
So I'm concerned about all cars.
And that's the thing. But in police training, they're taught that certain types of people are pose certain types of threat and certain types of people don't. And that is the problem.
You're saying that there's so they're being taught.
Yes, you're right. Time to watch out for the green car because no, it doesn't matter. And that's the whole point here. All of these people might be armed. All these people might be a potential threat. That little small white girl who looks like a secretary could be packing, just like that big dude with dreads could be packing. You need to be worried about all of them, but at the same time, you need to treat them all with the same level of respect. How hard is that?
But so you're killing your whole argument.
No, I'm not.
What you are
because it happens in plain sight. That's the whole point. That's why we're here. I'm not killing my argument at all.
You are killing your argument then to say
killing your argument.
My argument, I don't believe that the cops are just necessarily completely going to say because I'm just black that's the whole part of the part of the dynamic.
Where have you been? What didn't you watch the 13th? Didn't we talk about this last time? The numbers. The completely disparate, the completely disparate number of prosecutions and convictions. Like we talked about this.
We didn't talk about anything.
There's a targeting. There's
Right.
and the disparate number the disparate number of black shootings. Are you serious?
You've asked me where have I been and what I've been paying attention to.
Yes.
Let me answer.
Do
this.
you not see?
Do
you not see a level of? So you see no sense of racial discrimination.
I'm gonna tell you this.
Around
In my day-to-day life, I am more concerned about being shot by a black dude who looks like Soldier Boy in Concord Mills than I'm being concerned about being shot by a white cop.
Even when you're getting pulled over.
Yeah. Because
So
how many times am I? How many times? No. Let me finish.
We talked about going home earlier.
You want me to answer the
Just a
question?
load of
Right.
crap.
You want me
We
to answer
talked
the
about going
question?
home earlier.
Let's do this. We're talking about logic, my dude. How many times are you been in and how many times compared to how many times you've been pulled over have you been at a mall? Exactly. So the point is, if you're more likely to be killed by someone who looks like me.
More likely because of where I frequent. But the thing is I get pulled
talking
over.
about
I get pulled over five times a year, like clockwork.
Then you need to
and
drive
my
better,
likelihood,
bro.
and my likelihood,
Doing what?
and my likelihood of getting shot in those situations is consistent.
How many times?
If I got pulled over more or less times, that likelihood or that probability, it still would stay the same. The fact that I go to the mall every other week, that doesn't change. That doesn't make me more or less susceptible to something. It just simply.
You literally just said the times in which you are in a certain situation contribute to how much danger you feel.
It's time already?
That's the bell, ladies and gentlemen.
I didn't even get to what I wanted to.
Wow.
You didn't let me talk.
I was
on my
amazed.
own show.
I was amazed by that. Actually, by me just saying time, y'all just shut the fuck up. That was, wow.
Well, you haven't spoken with it in a while. I
We would have thought he was a white cop the way we just.
Nah, dude.
Yeah. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us tonight, Frank.
You ain't got to cut it so quickly.
Once again-
you've got like 2 minutes.
Oh, even when he says time,
Yeah.
I have a respect for authority, Steve. See, that's the difference between me and John.
Oh God, please stop it.
Anyway,
Stop.
I'm not anti-police. I don't hate the police, y'all. I just want them to do better. That's all. I'm just simply saying.
There's a lot of space
Do
between.
better.
There's a lot of space between do better and being because you have a certain race, because you have a certain color, you're already going to commit a certain crime, whether that's you being black, whether that's you being the white cop.
And there's another thing between the proof is in the pudding. Just simply look at the numbers.
Nobody's looking at the numbers of what you're talking about, Johnny. Nobody is.
Oh God! Just look at the numbers.
Once again, guys,
Who gets pulled over the most? Who gets highlighted the most? Just look at the numbers.
I'm trying to be.
Well,
I'm trying to grow as a person, and this show is helping stretch me. Guys, thank you for joining us tonight on Frankly Speaking, Square Media Network. We hope you tune in another 2 weeks' time. I'd like to thank Johnny Metcalf for joining me for round 2. Y'all have a good night. Don't drop your mic this time, Johnny. Just show that we're still friends.
Oh man, this.